Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is the original United Stands 8 PM show. Hope you're all doing very well this evening. Lots to talk about as always. We're going to be talking about transfer talks, starting with two Manchester United transfer targets, Joshua Zirkzee and João Neves. Big comments on both, even Benfica talking about Neves and name-dropping Manchester United. We'll also talk about Sir David Brailsford's early thoughts, cost-cutting, sales of youth to generate funds. Is that the way we want to go? Is that the way we need to go? People losing their job within the club. Young players being moved on. Is that what we need to do? Is that how desperate it is? We know we need to be ruthless and we know we need to make big decisions. Also going to be talking about the latest with Pellistri as well. There's developments around that. And I'll be answering a fantastic question from the comments section. It's not just the live chat. Some people don't get to watch it live. There was a question in the comments section from this morning show saying, what would be the disadvantages or pros of sacking Ten Hag in the before the season end? I'm really against this, and I'll explain why, because I've seen some people saying, what damage would it actually do if we sack him now? So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And of course, your interaction and comments, as always, are welcome. So make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe and get involved. But before we talk about these breaking news around Zirkzee and Neves, let me just tell you this. The show is sponsored by, and I'm very happy it's sponsored by, because this Boohoo Man hoodie, as you can see, is fleece lined. So you can really wear a t-shirt or nothing underneath it if you want, and you'll feel very warm. We're going to get -4 in the UK temperature tonight, which is very cold for us. I know some of you will be going, I sunbathe in that, Mark, where I'm from. Well, we don't. We get cold in that. So I'm very cozy in my Boohoo Man hoodie, which I'm sure many of you will like, especially the colours. And you could get one of these or many other items from boohooman.com. You can scan the QR code or go through the link in the description. And you can get an extra 10% off with the code Goldbridge. They've got a site-wide discount at the moment, and you can get an extra 10% on top of their discount with the code Goldbridge. So kit yourself out in January, whether you want to be down the gym or chilling inside, watching Netflix or whatever, make sure you get your stuff from Boohoo Man. Fantastic clothing items. It's a very, very good price. Check out through the link in the description or scan the QR code. But always, Boohoo Man love the community here, and they want to give you a bit of trivia, a bit of Man United trivia. So can you guess who I'm talking about before we get into the main news? I was born on the 18th of September, 1942 in England. I started my career at Tooting and Mitcham in 1961. I then played for Millwall and Chelsea before moving to Manchester United in 1966. During my 11 years at United, I played 433 games for the club. I'm Man United's highest ever scoring goalkeeper with 2 goals to my name. And I won the first division in 66-67, but perhaps more importantly, I was a key part of the team that won United's first ever European Cup in 1967-68. Therefore, who was the goalkeeper in 1967-68? Can you guess who we're talking about in the chat? You should do, but not everybody will know, I expect. You know, some of the younger ones may not have done their homework on this. It wasn't Michael Jackson, Bat, and it certainly wasn't Nani. It wasn't Onana. Thankfully, it was Alex Stepney. So Stevie B is there first in the chat. A lot of the members are getting it now, like Jim Jones, Suma, and Marcus Stevenson. Well done. Big shout out to Spoohoo Man for that. We like a bit of trivia. An extra 10% off with the code Goldbridge. Scan the QR code or go through the link in the description. Thank you very much to Boohoo Man. Right, let's get on with the show. Michael Neal has done an early super chat, actually. He says, if Ineos do not sack Ten Hag, do you think he'll be given a new contract, as he only has a year left? Might be unsettling for new players not knowing whether he's long-term. It'll be interesting to see how they approach it. I think this is a great point, Michael, and we're going to come back to that in a few minutes' time, because I think you raise a great point. I didn't even realise that. Are we 100% sure he's only got 1 year left on his contract? Because that is a big point, Michael. Well made. But look, let me start off with the breaking news, the big topical news. Manchester United are in transfer talks for Joshua Zirkzee and João Neves. Now, Benfica have even reacted to this by having their say on it. But effectively, we'll start off with the Zirkzee story. This is coming in from Plettigol, who is the German journalist. We were talking about his story about De Ligt and a couple of other centre-backs this morning. Well, he's saying Joshua Zirkzee is a serious transfer target for Manchester United in the summer, and early talks have taken place. Now, if you don't know how old Zirkzee is, I seem to remember he's 24. No, he's 22. So he's 22. He started his career off at, I think he started off at Bayern Munich, didn't he? Well, he didn't start off at Bayern Munich because, again, he's Dutch. But he started off, he did start off at Bayern Munich, and then he went off on loan to other places. But look, he's a striker who's doing quite well at the moment at Bologna. Arsenal have been looking at him. And, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when I look at the sort of striker that I think Manchester United need, I think that I think that if I could pick out the right Manchester United player for me to be a striker, any word on Dylan, his mate's mum yet? It's all gone quiet, Zach. I don't know. But Amir says he's very talented. Chaos says Zirkzee is very good. I'm not going to pretend I know loads about him. I mean, I know the name, but he's not a player I've seen a lot of. I'll put my hands up and say that. But does it concern you that he's Dutch? Not really. We do buy a lot of Dutch players, and we are linked to a lot of Dutch players, but there's not always truth in that, if we're being fair, in that case. But I think it's interesting that we sort of have this focus in the fan base about the January transfer window, but I think Man United's focus is very much on the summer transfer window. And in a way, that's a real positive, because I remember when we wanted Griezmann, and we were talking to Griezmann in the November, and the deal fell through in the June. So people don't realise that it's not early to be talking to players in January about a summer transfer mood. In fact, it's very intelligent to be doing that. So I think the fact that Man United are doing that it is a good thing. Is he the right sort of striker for us? Well, I think it's interesting because Zirkzee would be, 22, 23 if we got him in the summer. Rasmus will have had a whole year at the club. And Rasmus, by next season, won't be an up-and-coming striker anymore. I think he'll have learned a hell of a lot. So you've suddenly got a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old to hopefully lead your attack for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So I don't mind it. For me, I was asked this question, I can't remember where I was asked it about, actually, but I personally think that Darwin Núñez would be... we're not going to get Darwin Núñez, but obviously this was a striker that Ralf Rangnick wanted Man United to get, and it was a striker that Ten Hag wanted Man United to get. And he's about 24, 25, and I think if you had Darwin Núñez and Rasmus Højlund, that would be brilliant. You've got a slightly more experienced striker and a younger striker, and I'd like that combination of longevity and rotation, because I don't think Rasmus himself would be bothered. He might welcome it. As a striker, the mentality of a striker is to be competitive, to be selfish, to have an ego. You've got to. And when you look at Man United, when we won the treble, you've got Solskjaer, York, Cole and Sheringham. And okay, you play the front two, but you've still got 4 strikers. And everybody's competing with everybody. It's not healthy for Rasmus just to be the only striker at the football club. Yes, he knows he's going to start every game, but even he will know, because he's such a driven and motivated player, and we can see that. I think Rasmus would revel in the fact that we had another striker there competing with him. And also, you almost become in tandem anyway, because if one player starts, we know how physically demanding everything is now. You're going to come on with about half an hour to go anyway, and then you might start the next game. So rotational reasons, minutes reasons, I think we do need 2 strikers. And the question is going to be what profile of striker you go for. Do you go for somebody like Zirkzee, who's a little bit younger and, probably in many ways replicating Rasmus from the Italian league? Not an Italian striker, obviously, but Rasmus is not Italian. In the Italian league, sort of doing your groundwork as a young striker, and then you come into the Premier League. So it's an interesting one, and I'm certainly not opposed to it. I don't know loads about him, but I'm not opposed to it. If he's well scouted, I'm not opposed to it. The only thing I will say is about Zirkzee is, why would Manchester United be holding talks with Zirkzee when we don't have a director of football? And I think this is very important to remember. Every transfer story that we're being linked to at the moment, I'm not saying it doesn't mean we're going to get Zirkzee, I'm not saying it doesn't mean we're going to get De Ligt or Todibo, but we don't have, it's really important, we don't have our director of football. And the director of football, therefore, is in another job, or is not working for Man United. If it's Dan Ashworth, he's working for Newcastle, he's not going to be on the phone to Erik Ten Hag saying, get talking to Zirkzee. Newcastle might want him. So, that's not happening at the moment, is it? So realistically, whoever we're being linked to, we also have to bear in mind the sooner we get the new director of football in, the better, because he's going to come in with his own ideas. And as Beth was talking on the afternoon show today, Paul Mitchell's been linked with the Roma job. So are Man United going to steer away from Paul Mitchell, which would massively surprise me. Massively surprise me. As I said to you about 2-3 weeks before Christmas, 90% at that point was what I was being told. Paul Mitchell was going to get the job. I don't know whether Paul Mitchell and Dan Ashworth are both getting the job, or United were going for Paul Mitchell and suddenly... I think what's happened here, if we don't get Paul Mitchell, it's because it's a bit like when you're signing a striker and then you find out that Erling Haaland's available. I think United want Paul Mitchell involved, but I think that they might have become aware that Dan Ashworth's available, and that might be what's going on. But he has been linked to Roma, Paul Mitchell. James Hindle, welcome to the Members Club. You're an absolute legend. Get your badge in. Evening, Mark. Hope you're okay. How much do you think we will spend in the summer, says Jack. Well, how much we spend in the summer will depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on how many players we can get off the wage bill and how much money we can generate. So, look, Sir Jim Radcliffe can't just go, there's 300 million quid, go and spend it. Much the same as Saudi Arabia can't say that at Newcastle. The very basics of financial fair play mean that, look at Nottingham Forest. They've got a rich owner, he spent a load of money, they stayed up last year, and now they've got a charge because it outweighs what they're allowed to spend. So Manchester United can't just go and say, there's 300 million, go and spend it. They've got to make room for 300 million pounds to be spent. So how do you do that? Well, you start selling homegrown talent, young players, and that's pure profit. You start selling and reducing the wage bill as well. So huge amount of players need to come off the wage bill, and we need to sell a load of players as well. And then it will create a bigger gap to spend, certainly. So that answers that. Any word on Dylan and his mates? We've done that one as well. Thanks for the super chats that are coming in early so far. It's dither and delay at United. 2 incompetents, says Melps. Who's your favourite United player, Mark? Says Johnny. I've not been asked that one for a while. I'd say my favourite Man United player. Look, I've always liked Rashford and Martial, but, you know, I have to be honest, it's not going the way I would like it to. I've always been a big fan of Bruno Fernandes. I really like Casemiro and Varane as signings. You've got younger players like Rasmus, Garnacho and Mainu, I think are really exciting. I'm a big fan of Luke Shaw as well. I don't dislike any player, but you always have players that you prefer. And I think I've probably just listed most of them there, if I'm being honest. With Reguilon gone, are we relying on Malacia back, says Kanye? We are, yeah. Well, but then again, you've got Dalot playing there at the moment. I watched my Eagles lose to the Bucks last night, and Joel Glazer with his smug face showed up happy on my screen to compile my misery, says Philip, who's obviously into his NFL. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Zirkzee, a striker, and look, apparently we're in talks for him. The interesting story I heard today, and I'm sure many of you have already heard it, but let's just get into it. Benfica have put a statement out in relation to João Neves. Now, Neves is a midfielder who plays for Benfica. I forget how old he is. I think he's 19, 20, but he's got the lot. You know, he has got the lot. He can be a holding midfielder. He might develop into something else. He might be more box to box. But he's absolutely fantastic. Sajal says, name one, Mark. Name what? I don't know what you're talking about. Name one. No, I'm not naming my favourite player at Man United. I'm not that age group anymore. But, you know, going back to the Neves story, this player is a player that I think many of you would like to see Manchester United signing. My concern is that Benfica players, we've seen it with Enzo, we've seen it with Darwin Núñez, they get very, very, very big fees. Lots of the members are saying he's 19. Thank you very much for that. Welcome to the Members Club, Franklin. Get your badge in. But I feel that this is going to be a very difficult deal for Manchester United to do, because already Benfica in January are saying things like this. Benfica denies the existence of any right of preference over João Neves. Under no circumstances has Benfica started talks with Manchester United or any other club, nor does it intend to do so. So straight away I'm like, see you later. I'm off. Bye-bye. See ya. Not interested in that one. Thank you very much. When Benfica are putting strong statements out in January about denying having talks with Manchester United about a signing, as much as he could be a very, very good player, and I know Bruno's name dropped him as well, that to me is a big warning sign as to why we need a director of football, because we've made these mistakes before. It's Pogba or nothing. It's Alexis Sanchez or nothing. It's Jadon Sancho or nothing. It's Harry Maguire or nothing. And we end up spending huge amounts of money, and we never defer to a backup plan. I mean, I personally think when you look at the Mason Mount deal, we probably should have had a backup plan there. And I think many of you would agree with me on that. I think with Mason Mount, we should have had a backup deal, because £55 million is a lot of money. And I think this is going to be the prime example of Man United changing their transfer policy. I mean, I like the sound of Neves. I think a lot of people do. And at 19 years of age, maybe he's going to be the next best Rodri or, whatever he's going to be. I've got no doubt about that. I think Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea is a very, very good deal. It's a very expensive deal. But I don't think it's the sort of deal United should be doing this summer. I think we need to move away from the 89 million for Pogba, or the 75 million for Sancho, or the 80 million for Harry Maguire. We've got to move away, or the 80 million for Anthony. We've got to move away from that, because if you've got a good director of football, instead of spending, 89 million pounds on Paul Pogba, you do what Liverpool did, and you spend that amount of money on Alexis McAllister, Endo, Gravenberch. You go and get 2 or 3 players instead of one. And one thing that is very clear to me about Man United is we need quality, but we also need quantity. So yeah, I wouldn't be getting your hopes up about Neves. I think with Zirkzee, it's quite interesting, but I think with Neves, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you've got Benfica name-dropping Manchester United in a very aggressive way already. So I think we might just need to, try and avoid that one. Now, let me just talk about this, because there's some breaking news coming out from Chris Wheeler, the Daily Mail journalist, talking about Sir David Brailsford's early actions at the club, which could mean job losses. Not in relation to McTominay, you're fired. It won't be a footballer. They've got very, very good contracts. But we're talking about, Manchester United employees in all sorts of departments. There could be major sackings coming in as Man United look to save money. Not nice, because there's some fantastic people who work at that football club, and their wage, in a cost of living crisis. If you're somebody who works at United on 30 grand a year, and Sir David Brailsford and Ineos say we don't need that role anymore, you're gone. It's not nice for people on that level of a wage. They don't. They're earning a year what some of our players are earning in a day. So it's always sad to see that. But on the other hand, there will be people who jump on that and go, oh, it's ridiculous. But this is the state Manchester United are in. I don't blame Ineos and Sir David Brailsford, and I feel sorry for people who are going to lose their job. I blame the Glazers, because the Glazers have put this club into debt over a long period of time. And the bottom line is, I bet when you look at Manchester United, and we're not being bought by Qatar, we're not being bought by billionaires who are going to pump money in, we're being bought. We're not even being bought. We've got a 25% stakeholder who has to try and make this club competitive while still being owned by the Glazers. So it's very obvious that if you've got 3 people doing a job that 2 people could do, if you change their job role, and you can do that a lot around the club, you can save 30 grand a year. 100 grand. I mean, this could save, it's harsh to say this, but if Manchester United sack 100 people on 30 grand a year, what's that? 10 times 300 grand, it's 3 million. So £3 million. So people say it's pennies, but it's £3 million, isn't it? So I think that's something that is probably going to happen. It's the second time or third time we've heard that. And efficiency savings at United are always sad, because it shows you that we're cutting the cloth. But the other thing that it says in the Daily Mail report is that Man United are going to continue this policy of selling young talent. There's nothing wrong with doing this, by the way. Man City do this. We've seen Man City do it with Cole Palmer, get a lot more money than what we've got, and we're doing it with Mabry, and we're going to do it. We've done it with Alvaro Fernandez, and we may well do it with Pellistri as well. But I think no one is immune. So Stevie B, exactly. But Ian J. White, you've just reminded me that I really like Lisandro Martinez as well. I didn't even mention him. Lovely Lisandro Martinez. Hope you're well, Marks. Ian J. White. Neves is brilliant, but I prefer Xavi Guerra, says Remy Morgan, who will probably be cheaper as well. Good point. But yeah, look, I think with United, we do need to generate funds. And to do that, you've got to look at what's sellable. And unfortunately, when you need to sell money, if you run a shop, and you need to make money, you don't put in the shop window the can of beans that's out of date, do you? You put the best stuff in the window to get people in the shop, and then they probably buy the best stuff. So as much as it's bad, it's the same as people losing their job. Man United need to raise money, so they're going to have to sack people. Man United need to raise money, so they're going to have to sell players that clubs want. Benfica want Alvaro Fernandez. Sevilla want Hannibal Mabry. Teams want Pellistri. Everton wanted Granada. Everton wanted Ghana. So it's not great necessarily, but on the other hand, people moan about signings. We need to find a way to generate money. There are people who well, we've seen it over recent years. There's not a big queue of people queuing up for Donny van der Beek, is there? There wasn't, or Anthony Martial. So you've got to find a way to get the money in. Philip gifted 5 memberships. You're a legend, Philip. Thank you very much for that. Now let's go back to our very first super chat of the evening. Michael Neal. He says, if Ineos do not sack Ten Hag, do you think he'll be given a new contract as he only has a year left? Now, I was asked this question by one of you. Well, I wasn't asked it. It was put into the comments this morning. What's the problem with sacking Erik Ten Hag now? Well, look, as Michael said quite rightly, this is an article in The Guardian. Ten Hag is under contract until summer 2024 on a salary of around 9 million. So to sack him could cost the club up to £15 million. And this was an article in November. So Erik Ten Hag's contract is up in 2025. So Erik Ten Hag's contract is up in just over a year's time. Now, I think this is really, really, really interesting. And I thank Michael for it, because it's something I'd completely missed. I will answer that question about what the problem is with sacking Erik Ten Hag now before the summer. But we've got to bear in mind here, and Michael's exactly correct, we've got to bear in mind here that not only have Ineos got to make a decision on what they want to do with Ten Hag, and I'm sure the next 3 or 4 months will be a rehearsal or an audition, for him. But what they can't do, I mean, it's an extreme. We're dealing in extremities here. If they want to stick with him, they can't in their head go, let's see how next season goes. They've got to give him a contract. Because you can't go into next season. No club can go into a season with a manager that's only got one year left on the contract. You just can't do it. You can't do it. I remember some of you might be old enough to remember when Sir Alex Ferguson announced he was going to retire. Now, there's a quiz question for you. What year was it that Sir Alex Ferguson said he was going to retire? I think, for me, as far as I remember, I think it might have been 2001, but I'm probably miles off. If anyone remembers that one, let us know in the chat. But Sir Alex Ferguson basically said, way before he actually did retire, he said that he was going to retire. And it was left for a while. Like, he said, I'm going to retire at the end of the season. And I think it was a few months before he decided against it. Apparently it was 2002. So thank you, everybody there. Yeah, somebody just said 2003. Oh, my God. Some people have saying 2013. We know he retired in 2013. No, he said in 2002 he was retiring at the end of the season. And it really affected us. We didn't have a good few months. Like, the team just were like... Players lose focus when they know the manager's going to go. So we can't go into next season with Ten Hag in his last year. That would be catastrophic. So what we need to do is, if Ineos are going to stick with Ten Hag, they've also got to give him a new contract. So this summer's really interesting now, because he's only got a year left in his contract in the summer. And they can't just say, we're going to give you another, let's just see what happens next year, because that doesn't work. So get this in your heads. Ten Hag's getting sacked in the summer or he's getting a new contract. There can't be anywhere in between, because it just doesn't work to say, let's just see how it goes in your final year. It doesn't work. You've got to commit or you've got to split. So great point by Michael, and I think, you know, it's probably something that many of us knew but haven't probably been thinking about. So yeah, they're going to have to give him a new contract or let him go. Now, would sacking him, some people are saying, whether it's you, whether it's on social media, whatever, some people are saying, why not just sack him now? What's the problem with sacking him now? And I have a problem with it, and I'm going to tell you now. Glazers paying their own takeover legal fees would raise significantly more. 164 million is slated in the 241-page document. Sir Jim had walked away, says Daddy. Santiago Jimenez, 30 to 40 million pounds. Sounds doable. What do you think? A striker option, says SK. Real Madrid did it with Ancelotti. He had 6 months. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but this is a very different league, Mario. Very different league. You know, Real Madrid are going to be first or second every year, aren't they? Would you be okay if we sacked Ten Hag for Jose till June, says Philip? No. And how could Ineos address the uncertainty that our players' coaching staff are probably going through at the moment? It's tough to perform with no purpose, says Juan. Yeah, well, this is, we are in a bit of a limbo at the moment. I want to talk about why I think it's really bad to sack Ten Hag before the end of the season, but I also want to acknowledge why it could happen. But just on the Jose thing, we've got a United Stand group chat, and Faz, he's been tweeting it anyway, so I'm not disclosing private information. He would like Jose to come in, Faz. Now, I'm sure he's going to tell you this when he's next on, but I completely disagree with Jose coming in. I mean, for one, I think he's on the decline. I think he's lost his magic. I think that the Chelsea and Man United jobs destroyed him. You know, being backstabbed twice when you are such a powerful manager, I think he's lost that spark, to be honest. But the real reason I wouldn't go anywhere near Jose, and he's completely incompatible with Man United. And I really like him, and I wish we hadn't sacked him the first time, and I wish I hadn't been part of the movement like everybody else saying Mourinho out. But we didn't really know the extent of player power then. We were in the dark. But if you bring Jose Mourinho in now, then you're bringing a manager in that is a short-term manager who also has always needed signings. So what would be the point in giving Mourinho the job in January until the end of the season? He would want the job longer than that, and he would want to sign players. So if you know anyone who thinks let's get Mourinho in for 6 months, it's incredible. It just doesn't fit with Jose at all. And also, he'd be inheriting some players that he doesn't like, who he's publicly spoken about since he left. So, you know, I don't think his relationship, for example, with Luke Shaw is that good. So, it wouldn't make any sense. The only benefit, if you wanted to bring Jose Mourinho in, would be to give him a 3-4-year 3-year contract. But I don't think Jose. Look, I don't see the point in that, because we brought Jose in when Man United were in a better position and he couldn't win the league. So why would you bring him in now in 2024 when we're in a much worse position? And he's not a club rebuilder. He's somebody that can come in, put a bit of paint on, and, you know, win you a title. So Jose's not the right guy. I think Mourinho for England, Baldwin, 100%. You know, he'd be brilliant if he wants to do international football, and I'd love him as England manager. He'd be perfect, because in a transfer sense, you don't do any transfers. You've got Harry Kane, you've got Jude Bellingham, you've got John Stones, you've got Saka. You know, he's got the players to be successful. But the Man United job just doesn't suit Jose. And the reason it doesn't suit him is because even if he could rediscover what Jose was about, and I don't think he can, we don't suit what he is. We need to be patient and build something. We don't need, let's spend a load of money on short-term players. So, yeah, it would be a big no from me. The problem with United is that the moment we think of an ultimatum like that, and then there's no choice other than sacking him or giving him a new contract, we're going to string him along just like we did with so many of our players, says Chuba. Eric Ten Hag lost me when he said he's not here to coach the Ajax style, says Dennis. But I can probably win you back, Dennis. The reason Ten Hag said he's not here to coach the Ajax style is because he hasn't got the players to coach the Ajax style. That's what he meant. And people will go, but he's had 400 million quid. It's not enough. The Ole Gunnar Solskjaer team can't play Ajax football. And Ten Hag buying 5 players doesn't make 11 or 13. So he's not there yet, is he? But look, I need to answer this question. And you're obviously going to have some points on this. What's the problem with sacking Erik Ten Hag now? Some fans say we may as well do it now. Let's sack him now. What's the problem with that? Well, I think there's a huge problem with that. A massive problem with that. Because we have still got an opportunity in the FA Cup. We've still got an opportunity to climb the league. And also, I think you have to give Ten Hag these next 3 games. Wolves away, West Ham at home, and Villa away with Casemiro, Martinez and Luke Shaw back. I think he has to be given that. If you lose all 3 of those games, you're probably going to get the sack. Right there, right now. So, look, it's an ongoing assessment. But if, in the best case scenario, the reason I think it's bad to sack Ten Hag now is because compensation would have to be paid, which is, around 10 million quid, which is just 10, that's the Alvaro Fernandez and more deal spent on Ten Hag. So that's always a bad thing. You're also in a position where who are you going to bring in short term, and the risk that somebody who comes in short term, like Potter, ends up getting the job full term, which I think is dangerous. I think if Ten Hag was to be removed in the summer, you'll end up with a better replacement. Whereas if you remove Ten Hag now, you could end up with fuck knows what, who comes in, gets a bounce and keeps the job. So I'm terrified of that. And also, I think that if we sack Ten Hag now, what would be the purpose of doing that? I don't see the purpose. The manager that's going to take the job can't really do anything until the summer anyway. The player power wins again, which I think is a bad message to send out. Ineos are not the Glazers, apparently. So the worst thing they can do is do what the Glazers did to Mourinho and what they did to Solskjaer and sack him halfway through a season. In hindsight, we probably would have been better keeping Ollie till the summer and not bothering with Rangnick. In hindsight, we definitely should have kept Mourinho till the end of the season and not got Ollie. So if Ineos sack Ten Hag, they're just doing what the Glazers did, sacking a manager halfway through the season and bringing in a pointless interim. So I think the best thing to do is to get through the summer. And as I've said before, the cherry on the cake for me, and this is very personal, is that if you are going to sack Ten Hag, and that's in your mind to do it, and it's got to be an option on the table, but you are going to do a thorough review, what a missed opportunity it would be to sack Ten Hag, continue your review, and then not be able to use him as part of it. Even if you're just using him and like a sponge and sucking up all the information, Ten Hag, if I'm Sir David Brailsford, has got to be part of the next 4-month strategic review because he will have knowledge. Even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if you think he was useless, would have been good as part of a strategic review because even though he was weak, he could tell you who the people were. Look, some people feel that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was bullied, because he wasn't experienced enough, because he was too nice. But he'd still be very good in a strategic review because you could find out who was bullying him. I don't think he was bullied. I don't think that was the case. But there's a lot to be learnt from Ten Hag, for Ineos and Sir David Brailsford. And I think to just sack him and let him go before you've taken that information would be a big, big, big mistake. But what I will acknowledge is this. They're already having those conversations now. So they should already be absorbing that information in. And if we lose to Wolves, West Ham and Villa, which is not impossible, then he would have to be sacked. Of course he would. So it's not impossible that he gets sacked before the end of the season, but I think those people who are screaming and shouting for it now are doing it because they're petulant and impatient. And I get that. I do understand it. When you've made your mind up, and you want to get on with it. It's like a divorce, isn't it? Let's stop messing around and trying again. Let's get it done with. And I get that. But there is a mistake in that sometimes, is that the petulant and impatient can sometimes miss an opportunity. And I think there are some opportunities that we can take positively into the summer. And that may well be parting ways with Ten Hag and bringing somebody else in, but I don't see the benefit of an interim. I don't see any benefit of an interim. I think all I see is danger from an interim because we know that these players will, as the minute Ten Hag gets sacked, if we go for an interim, these players will bounce back. I mean, look what they did for Ollie. when Mourinho got the sack. They will want to prove a point. And the dangerous thing is, the results start improving. You know how our fan base is. They'll start singing a song about wheels again, and that interim will get the job. And that's the worst thing we can do. If we're replacing Ten Hag, you go and get the best you can get in the summer. Can you imagine if social media was what it is now when we didn't win the league for 3 years after Sir Alex decided not to retire, says Glenny Boy. Yeah. I don't think we can live in the past, but I was talking to somebody today. Sir Alex Ferguson took the Man United job in 1986. We didn't win the league until the early 90s. You just wouldn't survive today. You wouldn't survive today. There's too much impatience, but it doesn't matter because social media didn't exist then. The long ball stat, should we just go for Sean Dyche, says SK. Mohammed, thank you very much for your super chat. And I don't think people recognise how important the quality of players are, says Steen. Ranieri won the league with Leicester, but I don't see him as a good manager. And Glenny Boy says, can you imagine if... I've done that one from Glenny Boy. Sorry, Glenny Boy, you got 2 shout-outs there. Emily Derry, not heard from you for a while. Member for 20 months. Even if Mourinho came back, overlooking the backstabbing and the politics, his football is very defensive, which is one of the criticisms of Ten Hag. Yeah, I think people are getting romantic because they like Jose, but I don't think there's anything in that. Although Keel says, I disagree. I think Jose is suitable for the long term. How? Because I disagree. So we're going to go head to head here. It doesn't make me right, doesn't make you wrong, but when has Jose Mourinho ever shown that he's in it for the long term? He's never done it. I don't think he's been at any club for 3 years, has he? So how can he be in it for the long term? Also, when has Mourinho consistently showed that he's a developer of youth talent? When has Mourinho ever bought players in that need developing? I don't think Jose... Look, Jose's not getting the job, but he's absolutely not what I think is right. We need... On the one hand, you've got a whole fan base saying we need to buy players like Brighton do. We need to develop players. We need to buy cheaper players. We need to scout better. We need to develop. We need to play a better brand of football. We've got to build a football club. And on the other hand, people are going, we need to get Jose in, who likes to spend money on ready-made players who are expensive to win something in the first 2 years. It's completely incompatible with what we want to do. In my opinion, but look, obviously others have got theirs. Mark Grimaldo from Leverkusen would be a perfect replacement for Luke Shaw, says Sajal. Andrew Fletcher, who's been a member for 16 months, says, when do you expect to see a midfield of Bruno, Mainu and Casemiro? Well, I expect to see it. I mean, let me just remind you that Newport County are actually playing Eastleigh right here, right now. And they're currently 1-0 up at half-time against Eastleigh. That's our next Premier League game. We then have got the Premier League games. I think that we have Wolves on the Thursday after the Sunday. And I think that game is when you want to be playing your best team. The game in the FA Cup will be interesting, but we've got to be looking at that 3-game hit of Wolves and West Ham and Villa. Those next 3 games are massive, and he's got to have a settled team for that. But as many people have said, what if Mainu comes out of the team and he sticks with Casemiro, McTominay and Bruno? Or what if he goes with Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno? Look, you saw on Sunday, like it or not, and I'll read those other chats out in a minute, but you saw on Sunday, like it or not, how crap United are at defending crosses. And you saw, as well as I did, why he picked Scott McTominay. And I've been saying this for months. He picks McTominay because he's tall. That's why he picks him. And also he can score a goal at the other end. But if Scott McTominay was 5'10", he wouldn't be anywhere near that team. He picks him because he's tall. Because when you look at the team on Sunday, Bruno's not good in the air. Mainu's not that good in the air. Eriksen's not good in the air. So you've got a very small midfield. So I think that McTominay has been being picked because of his height. And as much as it pains me to say that, because I absolutely hate Manchester United picking players based on the opposition's strengths. I've never heard such shit in all my life, but that's what we've become. No other team at the top does that. Villa don't go, we're going to Man United and they've got Rashford, let's play a deep line. Spurs don't do that. Man City don't do that. Liverpool don't do that. Nobody looks at United and goes, oh, they love the ball over the top. Let's camp out on the edge of our box. They go and express themselves in the way they want to play. But ever since Jose, and Ollie did it, and Ranić did it, and Ten Hag's doing it, we do look at the opposition and go, we could do with the McTominay playing because we need a tall midfielder. So the reintroduction of Casemiro should stop that because he's big, he's tall, and he's good in the air. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to go with Mainoo, Casemiro, and Bruno. And how many times over the last 10 years have we had our perfect front three or our perfect mid? I mean, I remember it with Herrera under Van Gaal. You know, I was convinced that Herrera should have been in the midfield, and he never bloody picked him. He'd always picked Fellaini. So sometimes fan theories don't come true. They remain fiction. And maybe we won't see Mainoo, Casemiro, and Bruno. We should bloody see it, because Mainoo should be starting, Bruno should be starting, and Casemiro should be starting. But he might go Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno. You never know with Ten Hag. You just don't know. We don't have the players that can play Jose's style. We don't have the pounds to get the players for him. And if we had, we would have spent it on Ten Hag, says GSM. Benfica like to do 50% sell-on clauses as well, says AP. Would you take Steve Bruce for the remainder of the season? No, Rory. I think that would make me want to throw up. Johan says, hi Mark, I love the work that you do and the community you've built. Just wanted to say thank you to the whole United Stand family. You all really helped me out. Have a dark time. Well, I love those sort of messages, Johan. Not that you've been in a dark time, obviously, but the fact that you can find light and positivity and community within the community, because that's what we've built over the years. It's a fantastic community, and you're very welcome on it, Johan. Thank you very much. I thought we wanted a manager who's a disciplinarian coach, says Akil, not a passion merchant. Erik Ten Hag is a developmental manager. Maybe the football and team won't be good for now. Patience is key, not like Arteta out, says Akil. And if I had the choice, I'd give the manager 4 years, says Ryan. We did with Sir Alex, and if they fail, sack him. Look, it's very... I'm with you, Ryan. I really am. I would love it if Man United handed Ten Hag a 3-year contract tomorrow. I'd love it. It would cause mayhem. But I would absolutely love it, because at least we'd know he's going to be here. And those players that might be thinking, I'm going to win, he'll be gone in the summer, would suddenly shit themselves. So I would love that. I would love him to get a 3-year contract tomorrow. The problem is if he's the wrong guy. That's the problem. And as I said to you last night, it's not that I back Ten Hag. It's the fact that I know we need a manager that we actually, when we're in times that are tough, we back them. Because that's what happened with Sir Alex all those years ago. The thing is, have we got the right manager? That's the question. I think we can have the right manager. I think he can be the right manager. But if we sack him, we're back where we were. We're running around the cycle. And I do think that it's hard to say whether we've got the right manager or the wrong manager, because even if we had the right manager, I still think what's happening would happen because of the problems we've got in the club. Not just in the squad, but in the coaching, in the fitness department, in the recruitment. I think even if we had the right manager, you imagine who your ideal manager is. Like, some might think Ten Hag, some might think De Zerbi, some might think Hansi Flick, some might think whoever. Imagine they were the manager of Man United right now. I still think they'd have the same problems. They'd have a squad that's not really unified. They'd have a fitness department that's been failing for years. They'd have a recruitment department that's abysmal. They'd have a board that's a joke. And so I don't think it matters who the manager is at the moment. You would be failing, because it's like riding a bike with 2 flat tyres and no chain. It's just not going to work, is it? No matter how good the rider is, it's not going to work. And I think what we've got to do is put those things in place. And then you'll really understand what the problems are at this football club. But I don't think everybody acknowledges that. I don't. I still hear and see people saying, sack the manager, sack the manager. And I'm like, it really doesn't matter who the manager is, in my opinion. I don't think it matters whether you've got the right manager or the wrong manager at the moment. It will end up badly because the components are not there to be successful. And until and that's what has to happen first. You've got to have this balanced squad. You've got to improve the recruitment. You've got to have the right board, and you've got to have the right coaching, and all those things need to be done. It's incredible to me that a lot of the first team coaches are still coaches that worked with Ollie. and may still be coaches that work with Mourinho. I don't know. There's this myth that when a manager comes in, they bring all their coaches from Ajax. He didn't do that. I think he only brought a handful with him. Rangnick was struggling to find an assistant manager when he was here. So that's another thing that never gets spoken about. I mean, again, good journalism would root this out. How many first-team coaches do Manchester United have across a typical day at Carrington, and how long have they been at the football club? I mean, how hard is it to do an article like that? And the modern football fan craves that information. You know, you look at how we analyse players so deeply. The Man United fans would love to know the full list of what Man United have got training their team and how long they've been there. And I think it would be mind-blowing how many of them. I would want to know. I'd want the full list. I don't need the name. Just like for, set piece coach 1, goalkeeping coach 1, do it like that. We don't need their names. But I would want to know how many we've got, how long they've been here, and who recruited them, what manager. Because God knows, we might have somebody who was here when Moyes was here. John Murtagh. He was recruited by Moyes, so there you go. Surely Ahmad isn't going out on loan, so what's our options on the wing? Just Rashi, Garnacho and Anthony. Kelly, good point. Pellistri is going to go out on loan. The talk is that he's going to go to Granada. The thing I don't know about Pellistri is, and even Fabrizio didn't know this yesterday, is that Marvin says he literally bought in Benny McCarthy. Oh, so he bought in one coach. Yeah. I think there's more than 2 or 3 coaches who train United, mate. It's not like training, your pub team on a Wednesday night. Pellistri has been mentioned with Granada. What we don't know is whether he's signing a new contract at United or he's doing what Mabry and Fernandez have done, where he's it's a loan to buy. So I don't know. I've never felt that Ten Hag is a big fan of Pellistri. So I fear that Pellistri might be another one that is on a loan to buy, but we'll find out in the next couple of days. Jose says, if Erik Ten Hag isn't the man, we need to look at everything. Need to know the style they want, and if it's possible with the squad. Exactly. That's why I wouldn't be doing anything quickly. Erik Ten Hag's in-game management screams he is not the one, says Keel Robinson, who wants Jose. Ten Hag has sacrificed a lot to create a culture, says Mario Franco, and Jose's most successful manager after Sir Alex Ferguson, says Keel. He's pushing it. With a proper structure in place to support the manager, no matter who is in charge, they will never succeed if they don't have it, says Jonathan. Mohammed says, sell Bruno and Rashford, buy young, hungry players, and Ajax play style will come alive, says Mohammed. Casemiro is good in the air, so wouldn't that negate part of the point of McTominay? Exactly, Emily, that's what I'm saying. I think over the last 2 months, McTominay's played a lot of football because he's tall, and we haven't had Casemiro. I think when Casemiro's back, we'll see less of McTominay. I don't think we're near the end with Ten Hag yet. Needs a chance with all the support around him, says Paul. I agree, Paul. I agree. And I'm not doing this to cater for the Ten Hag outers, but I'm absolutely convinced on this point that not even if, the next 3 Premier League games are massive. I mean, we're going to beat Newport or East Leigh. That's going to happen. That would be biblical. Not biblical. Amazing. East Leigh have equalised against Newport County, by the way. That would be incredible if we went out to Newport or East Leigh. So for me, the next games that matter are Wolves away, very, very difficult. West Ham at home, problematic. Aston Villa away, very, very difficult. So he's got to come through those 3. He has to come through those 3 games. And if he doesn't, then there's no point in me saying stick with the manager because I'm not bloody stupid. I know exactly what will happen. You can't lose that many amount of games. Somebody just said, what have we got after that, Mark? So we've got Wolves, West Ham, Villa. Then we've got Luton away, which I think is dangerous, actually. Luton away is not the game I think anybody thought it was going to be. Just ask Man City and Liverpool. So, even after Villa, we've got Luton away, Fulham at home, then Man City away, then Everton at home. So, look, it's a very interesting and challenging next few weeks coming up, and it will dictate. And even I will say, and I think we're all in unison here. there is a situation where a manager has to be sacked before the end of the season. Of course there is. You know, if the results keep going badly, then of course there is. Of course there is. Mark, if we trust then Ten Hag, then we not need years like you said at afternoon, as Ten Hag would already be in third this year, says Sajil. Give an answer, meal, Mark. He's asked hundreds of times. Well, I haven't seen it. And it's, I haven't seen it in the super chats or anything like that. And it's very hard to see it in a live chat that's whizzing through. So I can't see it, mate. So I can't answer it. Graham Souness says Luton could get Ten Hag the sack. Well, you know, respect Luton at Luton. It's a tough game. I mean, they gave us a tough game at United. Should United get Hansi Flick, says Meal. In relation to Hansi Flick, I can categorically tell you at this moment in time, he is not being considered by Manchester United as an option for Manchester United. I don't know why. I don't know anything more than that, but he's not. If Man United were going to replace Ten Hag at the moment, I would be honest with you and say it looks like Graham Potter. Now, whatever you think about that, it terrifies me, and I like Potter. But if I don't think, you know, I don't think Ineos or Sir Jim are thinking about sacking Ten Hag at the moment. I don't think it's in their vocabulary. I think they're reviewing things. They're aware that it might need to happen, but I don't think they're throwing names around to go and, you know, do it. And I think if they were going to replace Ten Hag, they'd go and have conversations with managers that are in jobs and see how, you know, look, at the end of the day, there might be something they could do with Ancelotti. I know he signed a new contract, but you never know. There might be something they could do with Zirkzee. You never know. I don't think that United really know what they want to do at the moment. But, you know, Potter has been mentioned a lot. But I don't think for 1 minute they've got an idea of what they would do. They might have a few ideas, but no. Why does some of our fans resemble Arsenal fans in Arteta's initial years? How can we be so impatient? So what people expect? Get Zirkzee and we win, says Akil. Yeah, well, it won't happen. And Ray Cowley says, why sign a manager we got rid of and has been removed in every job since, if I'm right? Let's just wait until the summer and evaluate the situation and adjust. I love that, Ray. I love that. But I have to concede, if we want to get to the summer and evaluate, we've got to start not losing games. He can sack himself if he loses too many games. But I absolutely am convinced that United will do exactly what Ray said. They will evaluate in the summer. That is their plan. Let's get to the summer and evaluate. But they might be forced to do something before then if the results fall off a cliff. If Eric Ten Hag beats Eastleigh, he's the man for the job, says Flapping Duck. Well, let's see if Eastleigh beat Newport first of all, because at the moment it's 1-1 between the two. But look, thank you everybody for tuning in. We've got some cracking shows coming up over the next couple of days. We've got some interviews with people that are going to be very, very interesting around Ineos, etc. It's not Sir Jim Radcliffe, don't worry. He wouldn't give an interesting interview. He can't. He's not even allowed to say anything, is he? I mean, he's definitely not allowed to say anything about the Glazers. But yeah, really interesting. And I'm really enjoying, I mean, I loved the 8 o'clock show last night. And I think the 8 o'clock show tonight's been fantastic as well. I'm back on the morning show with you tomorrow morning, funnily enough, on the morning show at 10 o'clock. Make sure, and what I will say is, I'm absolutely convinced that in the next 2 weeks, Man United are going to bring at least one player in. Not money, loan. I'm absolutely convinced. So keep an eye on that. There is this assumption we're not going to do anything. I think we are going to do something. And I think we're going to see more players going out the door as well. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to check out Boohoo Man. 10%, an extra 10% off on all their discounts that they've got anyway with the code GoldBridge. This is lovely. Keeps you nice and warm. Thanks everyone. Really appreciate it as always. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care and stay safe.